All right. Hope everybody's having a good morning. First I'll say it's an honor to be able to talk and present to a room of coaches. I always think it's one of the tougher crowds in a way because you're talking to the experts about things that a lot of you guys already know. When I started thinking about the topic here, after watching the first couple, one thing that I decided I wanted to do was just think outside the box a little and hopefully, give you guys something to keep you interested and entertained. And, I think people that know me a little, or as you get to know me, you'll find out I tend to put my own spin on things and think about things in different ways. And, and I think we all do, and I think that's what is one of the more interesting things about, communicating with coaches and watching coaches and watching other leaders is just how they trying to get a peek inside of what they do that might be different, how they think that might be different from you. And then just, if you can take a little bit here and there, I think it's a win. So, I've got some questions in here that may or may not start conversations. If I may or may not call on people, I usually like to flip through the videos here and people watch as these conversations go. So I might be more inclined to call on the people who have their screens turned off as a disclaimer, just to keep you guys locked in out there while this video goes on. Put my bio in here. It's more so when I think about where I've been. I've been at a bunch of different places, different levels, different regions, D1, D2, junior college. I just think it's good for a kind of a rounded out background, and having the opportunity to coach at under a lot of different coaches and with different assistant coaches and, different types of players in their development. The three topics I'm going to talk about, and hopefully again, get your wheels turning a little bit out there this morning and just think about things a little bit different way, and how they might apply to you and how you coach or how you lead. This isn't hopefully just for the coaches. Hopefully it's for the admins out there as well. But the three little categories I'm going to touch on, I'm calling category 1, think big, category 2, beat the process, and category 3, environment versus culture. So here we go. Think big. I think as a coach, and I think all of us have, we all have kind of a decision that we make. I think we all can just coach baseball. We can show up at the field, have our players, have our coaches stay in our bubble, stay in what's really probably our comfort zone, and just coach our team, run practice, go to the games, and I think there's coaches that do that and do a good job, and have winning teams and have winning seasons. And I think probably that's requirement number one of all of us. But then after that, I do think, you got to think big. Don't just coach your team. Don't just run your department. Run a complete program. Be the CEO. And that's when you start tapping into, setting up academics, community service, youth sports camps, getting involved in the fundraising side and facility development, getting involved on campus and having an impact on campus, the alumni base, things like that, are areas I think that are bigger than just coaching your sport. Hopefully, I strive to run a model program, and hopefully that's, I would say that's what all of us want to do. I think if you're doing that, then, high school baseball coaches are going to want to come on campus and, and hang out in our office, watch a practice. Junior colleges in the area, smaller colleges, are going to want to know, what we're doing here as a baseball program and all of us in all of our sports. in all of our departments. And then I think, when you start to get it rolling, there's going to be teams in the SAC, in higher level Division I programs. If you're doing it right, I think people are going to start to say, hey, what's going on at LR? That baseball program, where were they 4 years ago? Where were they last year? Look at them now, the volleyball program, the basketball program, LR football, one of the top 10 programs in the country. What is going on at LR? And people are going to want to know, and I always say, one way to find out, come hire my assistants, offer those guys a lot of money, and come try to steal them away. And, assistant coaches, I think, I think that's a part of being, that's a bonus of being a part of a winning program, like there are so many here at LR. People are going to want to know. And one of the ways they get to find out is to come and try to pay you guys the big bucks to go lead a program and, get a glimpse of what's actually going on at LR, and inside every team and inside every department, people should be talking about, what's happening at LR. How are they doing it at such a high level? One thing I ask myself and my assistant coaches even challenge our players, with this, probably one time a year in the fall, when I think maybe things are, not quite, moving at peak performance. I ask them, what if an ESPN camera crew followed you around for a day, for a week, did a story on our season. We've all watched those. Those are my favorite things to watch, on ESPN, is behind the lines. And, you get to follow around, Nick Saban and Coach K and those guys. And what if they did that to me? What if they did that to us as, to our players? And I ask him, would it be impressive? Are you motivational? Would watching your week on ESPN be inspirational to anybody? Or would it be, kind of a boring show? Would it be, would it expose you a little? And, I think, honestly, would it be embarrassing at times, how you talk, how you act, or, what you do, or, are you lazy? Are you a hard worker? And I think, everybody works hard at practice. Everybody works hard, during meetings and when you're called on, but, I think it's a good perspective is, if you're the guy that ESPN was following you around for a day, for a week, how would that look? I talk to my coaches, and, when I hire assistants, I challenge them to do the job that they want long-term now. Start doing it right now. I remember, I went 2 years at a junior college as an assistant. Then I got hired to be the recruiting coordinator and third base coach at Texas A&M Corpus Christi Division I. And at the time, they only had one full-time assistant. So my pay was only grad school, no stipend, no housing. It was just GA pay. And then I did that for 2 years, full-time recruiting, night classes, on the road, on the weekends, all fall, all summer, everything. And then 2 years down the road, my boss calls me in and says, let's go get some lunch. And he ended up offering me the full-time job that had just opened up as a promotion. And one thing that I can remember, and people even ask, what's different? Hey, you just got hired. What are your new duties? What's different now that you're full time and you're getting paid money now? And and honestly, the answer was just the money. What I did day to day didn't change. And that was because I realized I was doing the job already, and there's only one way to do it. in my mind, and you're either doing it that way, or you're selling yourself in the program short. The next thing that I always think about, and I kind of hear it and understand it, and it's almost a fight against like human nature, is, should pay or responsibility or even place dictate how you do the job? And, kind of obviously going along with what I just said, I don't think it should. I talk about, I think as an assistant, there are jobs that, you're going to have to do that you aren't going to love to do, or as a GA or, wherever you're at. For baseball, it's like, field work, you're in charge of the field, community service, being the camp person. If you're to me, as you're a young coach, young person, with those jobs that may not be as desirable, when a job opens up and you want to be the top assistant, and now the job is to be the recruiting coordinator, all I have to go off of is how well you did camps, and did you kill camps at the highest level? Community service, was that done and complete and big time and set up right? Because I only can assume that that's how you're going to do, the recruiting coordinator job or the pitching coach job. And I think that can be, the position you don't want to be in my opinion, is not coach, I know I was camp stunk, but, if I'm the recruiting coordinator, I'm going to outwork everybody in the country. Well, hey, that's a tough sell. All I have to go off of is how you just did the one duty, that actually isn't life or death, because, recruiting and, the pitching coach, those are, major responsibilities, and maybe community service isn't. But if you can't handle the community service piece, it's tough for me to trust that you're going to handle the stuff that really makes a difference on the field. I think location even matters, and it kind of bleeds into, the next bullet there, make Lenoir-Rhyne your dream job. If you want the job at Clemson, and this is what I challenged Coach Beasley with, when I hired him to be my pitching coach here. I asked, just would Clemson do it that way? When you get hired to be the pitching guy at Clemson, are you going to do it that way? And if the answer is no, then you probably shouldn't do it that way now. Clemson's going to pay you $200,000, and we can't. Are you going to work that much harder just because of the money? I would tell you, if that's the case, you're probably not doing it right. Make Lenoir-Rhyne your dream job. Do it like you're at Clemson. Do it like you're at Notre Dame right now. And then when you do get that opportunity, you don't have to change a thing. Another thing I talk about with my coaches is, don't just be the recruiting guy. I'm very intrigued with football. I see them posting, the assistant coaches on the football staff are, posting the maps of their zones where they have to recruit. And, I definitely want to sit down and, figure that out. I think that's very in depth. That's not just randomly recruiting kids and taking shots in the dark, and that's what I would challenge, my coaches and everybody with, don't just be a pitching coach, create a pitching system, create a recruiting system, to the point where you should be able to write it down, put it in a book and sell it. It's your system. It's what you do, make it bigger than just showing up at the field and, running pitching drills, for 2 hours and going home. Create your pitching program, be able to give a presentation on it, write a book and sell it. I think it should be that big. It doesn't have to be, but I think it can be. See the big picture. One of the toughest things is self-evaluate, but it's probably, to me, the most important thing. How can we get better? And that's what we ask ourselves all the time. And I even, amongst our coaches here in baseball, we sit down and, hey, we just went through fall number 1 together as a new staff. How can we do it better? I think it was good. don't hold anything back. If you didn't like something I said or did, tell me. It's not personal. Let's challenge each other. Let's have good arguments. We argue a lot down here. I think it's for the best, when everybody's, all in and bought in. And, I think that, you want to be challenged, and I tell my coaches, I don't give in easy to a challenge or to an argument. But that's because I want you to be able to sell it, and if you can sell it, and you can change my mind, that means I just got better. So I don't like losing those arguments, but when I lose an argument, I know I just got better. Last point, just think big. We throw around the word dynasty almost as a funny tagline a little, but why not? Why just have a good team? Why just have a good program? You might as well, make it a dynasty. Do it every year. You never know how long you're going to be at a place. Make it as big as you can. So that's my think big topic there. My next two topics, I think can be slightly controversial because I feel like it's a couple areas that people do talk a lot about, and there are books on, and people are very schooled up on the next two topics. My question is, and this is what I asked myself at one point, what happens when two process-focused programs match up? Who wins? Is it the most talented team? I tend to think so. The problem I have with that is sometimes I'm not the most talented team. So then I have to ask myself, am I okay taking the loss? If we follow the process and they follow the process, and they're a little bit more talented, am I okay just taking that loss? Do I have to hope they mess up for us to win? And when I ask myself that and put it that way, I don't like it. I don't want to just lose if we both follow the process and they're more talented. I think we've all kind of had those teams and those players that just find a way. I don't know, you start saying things like, I don't know how he made that play. I don't know how they just keep winning. They just win those close games. How does it go their way all the time? How did he do that? To me, those are the teams that we're trying to build. Those are the players that we're trying to build and create. Are those guys that sometimes, when you're not the most talented team and you're not the most talented player, you just go beat the team that is, I think that's, to me, that's more than mechanics and more than just, doing it how you always do it. I put trust the process and the results will take care of themselves. To me, that's what I feel like I hear when people talk about process. And I don't just like leaving it to chance and letting the chips fall as they may, as long as we follow the process. Sometimes I think you have to beat the process and win. I think it's an intangible thing. I think we've all had guys that we tab winners and people that, that aren't, I think that's beating the process. I wrote down like a golf slice, it's beating mechanics. When I go to the driving range, which I don't very often, I need to, I try to drive the ball right down the center, right down the middle. Mechanics, perfect, hit it straight. That's the process. That's obviously what we're trying to do, is hit it straight. Then I go play and my slice shows up, and I have a choice to follow the process that I've been practicing daily and hit it straight on the driving range, which I can't do, and lose. Or I can tilt myself a little to the left and hit that thing, run that thing back over the middle of the golf course and go get a win today, and then get back to the process tomorrow at practice, as I work out my kinks in my golf game. I think that it is kind of, applies to how I think about the process, but hey, it's game time. Let's go win. Let's go beat the process, and then let's get back on track and work out that slice. What I think a lot of process people don't ask themselves is, if your process doesn't produce the results you want, might this be the wrong process, or am I going to keep talking about it? I think that's not asked enough. Obviously, I know we all have our own process. I've got a process. It's just a pet peeve of mine that I get hung up on sometimes, a lot, because I think it becomes a tagline. And the other thing, I feel like when I listen to people and I see it on Twitter, and who talks about process the most, to me, it's when you lose. Hey, we just lost. Hey, we're on a losing streak, but we're going to trust the process and get back on track. Well, hey, I think you can think that, and you're not wrong. You're probably right. I just don't like hearing about it on Twitter and social media, as if you're doing it right because you dropped 10 in a row. I think you just need to keep quiet. The teams that win don't talk about, hey, we just trust the process and randomly won today. When you win, you say, it was a good win. We outplayed them. We beat those guys. And so to me, it's more of a pet peeve. And at the bottom, I put probably more semantics, because I don't like just talking process all the time. To me, process feels longer. It feels hopeful. Hey, I'm going to trust the process, and I hope I can win next week. I say system a lot more than I say process. And again, it's probably the same thing. But I feel like a system wins now. Hey, we're playing a team that's better than us. How are we going to game plan, and what system are we going to run this weekend to go win? Because if we just follow the standard process, we're not favored. And so let's go create a system and game plan and get ready to win. I think a system works now. And I think a process is something that's more long-term. And if the game's tomorrow and we need to win now, we need to figure out how we're going to do that. Last subcategory here, environment versus culture. Obviously, again, culture, we all know what a great culture is, and we all want a great culture in our program. This isn't knocking culture at all. That's what we are here to do. That's what most of our jobs are. At the end of the day, to change or create or continue to run a program that has a great culture. But again, to me, I think it has become a little bit of a tagline, a talking point. And again, a little long-term. I think when I think of culture, I think it takes time. And I think we all know that culture takes time. Sometimes years. And then even when you have it going, right, it's always changing. So again, as of today, well, what do I do about my culture? Do I have great culture today? Can I just make it happen today? To me, the way you do that is through environment, and that's why I talk about environment a lot more than I talk about culture. One, because I think culture kind of takes care of itself if you're doing the environment right. To me, environment's a feeling. You come watch us play baseball. I hope you feel LR baseball. And you feel the environment, come step into the dugout during a game. What you feel, to me, is the environment. It's the vibe at practice. It's hopefully that, when you walk down past the baseball offices, there's a little energy and excitement. When you're around our players in the weight room, there's a little juice, and it's an intangible thing. I don't think environment's in a book. I think it's what we control on a day-to-day basis. Culture at times, I think, is year to year, and environment is what we as coaches are in charge of and can actually touch and influence on a daily basis. So we talk a lot about the environment and making sure our environment's right every day. To me, culture is the product of the environment. Again, I think it's become a pet peeve to talk about culture, a tagline. I kind of equate it to book smart people. And I think we've all had that professor. And we know they're a genius. They're accounting up and down, and backwards. They know accounting. But they sure can't teach me accounting. And that class is really boring. And I don't know what they're talking about. They've got the books smart of accounting. And just like somebody that goes and buys a book on environment, they got it. They know what it is. They're reading it. They've read 100 books on it. It doesn't mean they can teach it to you. It doesn't mean that they can make environment happen. And I think that's the good news. I think that's what makes a good coach and a bad coach, and I think it's okay. Just because you have the information doesn't mean you can get it across to your players and your staff and your teams. I also think just because you say it doesn't mean you have it. If you want to build a big time culture and you keep saying it and saying it. And I've been a part of an athletic department, that, talked a lot about culture and culture and culture and culture and culture. And the coaches looked around like, man, this isn't, I hear you and you're saying it right, but I don't feel it, to me, that's why for me, the focus has gone on the environment, because if you feel it, if it's right today and it's right tomorrow, it's going to add up to a big time culture at the end. I'll say culture isn't automatic, and I'll use our examples here. I think one thing that we've all kind of heard people say, and I don't think they're saying it right, is, man, yeah, as soon as, a new coach, as soon as he stepped on campus, the culture changed immediately. I don't think that was the culture changing. I think that was the environment changing. I think the environment changes immediately. Our example here is a baseball program. I hope the environment changed immediately this year when our staff got on campus and we got going. But as we look back on year one, there were some culture things that didn't change automatically. The baseball house, and is it a party house or is it just a house where baseball players live? How is that looked at? That's a culture thing that's been in place at LR before I got here, and didn't change as soon as I stepped foot in the door, because it was a part of the culture. And again, that takes some time to smooth out. Football tailgate. We had an issue with that one time this fall, and they weren't doing anything wrong. They weren't doing it necessarily. We want players to tailgate. Football games are big time at LR. We want our athletes out there. It's a part of what we do. But something just didn't feel right about it. And, do we turn our backs, and just stay in the coaches and booster tailgate lot because we feel weird walking through the student lot? If that's the case, I didn't think that was right, even though it was kind of just understood and a part of the culture of LR baseball at football games. That's something that I felt like has to change. And we changed it. We're changing it because I don't think it happens overnight. Summer weights. When I got here with Coach Caldwell, came in and checked in, and there's guys in the weight room, but no baseball players in the weight room. That's just a lasting part of the culture that has been here, that I hope by changing our daily environment, off-season workouts and optional workouts in the weight room, more and more baseball players are going to be a part of that. And those are examples of, how though we are changing the environment and know what a good culture is, it didn't automatically happen for us, even in baseball. Last slide. A great coach recently said, your players' attitudes will be directly proportional to the quality of the environment you create for them. That's Sully last week. You teed me up for that one. And I wrote it down as soon as you said it. I thought this was something I was going to talk on a little bit, and I think you hit the nail on the head. Again, it is controlling what we can control. And to me, that's the daily environment. Our players are a product of the environment. Our coaching staffs are a product of the environment. Athletic department staffs. I think this applies across the board. And to wrap, I think that here's the good news. To me, it's why we're all here at LR. There's a lot of great places, a lot of great colleges. We've had some version of success before coming to LR. But when we got to LR and you walked through the halls and you felt something, and maybe you couldn't put your finger on it, but that's environment. And we're all here. We feel the environment, the juice, the energy, things are good. And we're continuing to build a big time culture that's still taking shape here at LR. So that's all I got. I know communication across these can be tough because there's so many people on. I'd be happy to stay and talk or even continue these conversations, by text after, or phone call or email, or whatever's easiest for everybody. I meant to put my phone number on here. If anybody wanted to just, communicate that way as opposed to, throughout everybody kind of watching along. But appreciate the time. And if there's any comments, or questions, again, we can do it now or do it later.
Hey, Coach Ram, real quick.
Yes, Elliot.
What's more important to you, identity or culture? What do you think comes first? I believe identity, but I'd love to hear your take on it.
Yeah, we talk about identity with our guys at some point every fall. It's a topic that comes up, because I just don't think that I don't think kids think about that individually, or even as a team. What do you want your identity to be? And I think a way to get to that is to ask, what do you think how do people describe you as a player? How do you want them to? How do other teams and programs describe your team and your department? Is it how you want them to? And how do you want them to describe your team? How do you want people to describe you as a player? That, and make sure that you're playing the game that way and approaching your business that way. I agree with you. I think identity is a lot like environment. It's what you can control. And when you get your identity right, it turns into your culture, and it bleeds up to